The business we ran before we got into sofas, the glamorous world of soft furnishings, was a business called Deliverance. It was a food delivery business based in London. We had 3 large kitchens, and in effect, it was a posh takeaway, I suppose. We were delivering, when it got up to speed, about 1,000, 1,500 deliveries per night, and it was a thrilling business. It was a complicated business. It was fortunately a profitable business, and very challenging in many ways. But it was complex. And when we were lucky enough to sell that business on, we had a bit of time to sit around and scratch our heads and try to work out what the next venture was going to be. And so we used the sort of knowledge that we had and the experience we'd gained through sofa.com, so through Deliverance, to try and work out what we were going to do. And there were a number of things that we didn't want. We didn't want a business which involved enormous overheads. And you mentioned the idea of spending lots of money on shops all over the UK. Well, every time we had to open up a kitchen at Deliverance, we had to shell out £500,000 on a sea of stainless steel and complex extraction systems and wonderful fancy cookers, etc. And we didn't want to do that at all. So whilst we were up for risk, we were not up for massive expenditure in that department. We also wanted to find a product which preferably had a slightly higher basket value. At Deliverance, as I say, we would find ourselves selling perhaps 1,000 deliveries a night at £25 a delivery. Ideally, it would be perhaps better to have 25 deliveries at £1,000 a shot. And we wanted preferably to have a product which didn't go off after 3 days. And also a business which wasn't so heavily dependent on lots of stuff. Again, at Deliverance, with sales of £6 or £7 million, we had perhaps, up to, or perhaps slightly in excess of 200 staff. I mean, many of them are part-time, I accept. And this is partly because we ran the supply chain the whole way through, and we dealt with every step of the business. So all those factors helped us decide, to some degree, what we didn't want and what we did want. And also the other factor, one of the reasons why Deliverance was a great success, was because we found a business which, to some degree, was a very disparate, fragmented business across the UK, the food delivery business, and it was relatively down and dirty and downtrodden, and we breathed some form of fresh life into it. We put a lot of work into the designing of our menus. We wanted to look good, we wanted to sound great, we wanted to have a personality, we wanted to have, and we wanted to be trusted and relied upon by our potential customers, which is exactly what we were. We had no issue with demand at all. So we sort of found ourselves upon sofas for basically all those reasons, what was good and what was bad about our previous business. And then, of course, there was the internet, which was the other factor that we threw into it. At the time, pretty much no one was selling, well, I said, there were obviously a few people attempting to sell sofas online, but this was back in 2005, and whilst all our competitors now certainly had websites, they were just notice boards. They were not places to go and buy sofas, or they were trying to drive people towards their shops as opposed to drive people towards selling online. And to some degree, that's how I suppose that's how we designed and thought about the idea.